While every headline this week is about her draw, her rivals, and her ranking, Alex Eala has already been quietly doing something else entirely, days before anyone was watching. No cameras, no press conference, no highlight reel. Just her, an empty practice court, and a schedule that almost nobody outside her team has actually seen. Here's what should stop you. This is supposed to be the biggest week of her career. A projected seed for only the second time ever. Mixed doubles for the first time in her life. An exhibition against one of her closest friends on tour. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, she disappeared into practice sessions that got almost zero attention. So ask yourself the obvious question. What is she actually doing back there? Is this just routine preparation? The kind every player goes through before a Grand Slam? Or is there something else going on, something that explains why she arrived in New York earlier than she needed to, and why she's been so deliberately quiet about it? Because here's the thing. Preparation this quiet, right before a week this loud, usually means one of two things. Either she's building something smart enough that she doesn't want anyone paying attention to it yet, or she's trying to hide a problem before it becomes one. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which one it is. You're going to see the calendar she's actually working with this week, and once you see it laid out, you'll understand why some people close to the sport are quietly worried about what it could do to her. And you're going to see the one piece of information that flips this entire story on its head, the part almost nobody connected until now. If you've been following her season, you already know she doesn't do anything by accident, which makes this even stranger. Because whatever she's doing in secret right now, it's happening at the exact moment the entire tennis world is looking somewhere else. And that's exactly where we need to start. Here's who we're talking about. A 21-year-old who climbed into the world's top 20 this year, for the first time in her career. She won her first WTA singles title in Washington. She reached the fourth round at Wimbledon, and on the way there, she beat a former Wimbledon champion. That part, most casual tennis fans already know. Here's the part almost nobody's talking about. The schedule she's about to survive. This week, she isn't playing one event. She's playing 3. Mixed doubles, for the very first time in her career, paired with Felix Auger-Aliassime, on a path that could put her across the net from Novak Djokovic and Aryna Sabalenka. An exhibition match against her close friend Iva Jovic, in front of a crowd that shows up specifically to watch tennis's rising stars. And then the main event, the one that actually counts for ranking points, her official singles run at the US Open. 3 events. 1 tournament. Less than 2 weeks. Now here's the number that should actually worry you. This season alone, she's played more singles matches than almost anyone else inside the top 20. On top of that, she's added 14 doubles matches to her workload. 14. That's not a light supplementary schedule. That's a second full season stacked on top of her first one. Think about what that means physically. Every match is recovery time lost. Every doubles match is more strain on a body that's already absorbing a full singles calendar. And she's doing all of this heading into the most physically demanding 2 weeks of her year, at the tournament with the most on the line. If stories like this, the ones hiding underneath the highlight reels, are why you keep coming back here, you already know this channel exists to dig into exactly this kind of detail before anyone else connects it. So stick around, because what almost nobody's talking about is the schedule she's about to survive. And just how little room it actually leaves for anything to go wrong. Look at the calendar for a second. Mixed doubles on the 25th and 26th. An exhibition on the 27th. Singles starting on the 30th. That's not a schedule. That's a gauntlet. 4 days. 3 separate competitive environments. 0 real rest in between. Now stack the first layer on top of that. This season, she's already played more singles matches than almost anyone ranked near her. 14 doubles matches on top of that. Her body has been absorbing a full calendar's worth of wear since January. And now, right before the most important 2 weeks of her year, the schedule asks for even more. Ask yourself the obvious question. How does a 21-year-old body hold up under that kind of accumulated load, heading straight into a Grand Slam? Here's the second layer, and this one's harder to explain away. Even her practice sessions aren't actually private anymore. When she arrived at Flushing Meadows early to start training, she needed a security detail just to walk from the car to the practice courts. Not because of any danger. Because of the crowd. Fans surrounded her, phones out, chanting her name, so many people that security had to physically clear a path just so she could reach an empty court to hit some practice balls. Think about what that means for actual preparation. Practice is supposed to be the one part of a player's week where they can just work, quietly, without an audience, without noise, without pressure. For her, that space doesn't exist anymore. Even the recovery time that's supposed to be private has become a public event. So here's the second mini question. If the one part of her schedule that's supposed to be low pressure has turned into a crowd management situation, where exactly does she actually get to rest? And here's the third layer, the one that makes this whole picture start to look unsolvable. She's stepping into mixed doubles for the very first time in her career. Not an event she's used to. Not a format she has years of muscle memory in. A brand new competitive experience, added on top of an already overloaded season, in the exact week where every mistake gets magnified by a global audience. Put all three of those layers next to each other. A body that's absorbed more matches this year than almost anyone at her ranking. Practice sessions that have turned into public spectacles instead of private preparation. And a brand new event she's never competed in before, wedged directly in front of the most important tournament of her season. On paper, this looks like a recipe for exactly the kind of collapse that ends careers early. Too many matches, too little recovery, too much unfamiliar pressure, all compressed into 4 days before the tournament that matters most. But here's where the story stops making sense the way you'd expect. Here's the part that changes everything. Not every one of those 3 events costs her the same amount of energy. Mixed doubles and the exhibition use a shortened format. Games played to 4, no long deuce battles, matches designed to move fast and stay entertaining. That's not a grueling 3-set war. That's closer to an extended practice session with a crowd watching. The kind of match that keeps her sharp without draining the tank she actually needs for singles. Stop and think about what that means for everything we just laid out. What looked like 3 brutal competitive environments stacked on top of each other is actually one real physical test, wrapped in 2 lighter appearances designed to keep her match sharp without wearing her down. The schedule isn't reckless. It's layered on purpose. Here's an analogy that makes this click. Think about a marathon runner in the final week before race day. They don't sit completely still. They run short, easy loops, just enough to keep their legs loose and their rhythm intact, without burning the energy they're saving for the actual 26 miles. That's exactly what this week looks like for her. 2 light loops before the real race. And here's where it connects directly to something that happened just weeks ago, something that looked like bad news at the time. Her early exit in Cincinnati. At the moment it happened, that loss looked like a disappointing result heading into the season's last major. But flip it around, and it's actually the opposite. An early exit meant fewer matches on her legs in the final stretch before New York. It meant more recovery time than she would have had if she'd gone deep into that tournament. It meant she arrived at Flushing Meadows with more in the tank, not less. Suddenly, the pieces that looked like warning signs start looking like something else entirely. The lighter formats aren't accidental. The early Cincinnati exit wasn't just misfortune. Both of them line up, almost too perfectly, with a player and a team who understand exactly how much this body can absorb before this specific tournament, and who built the surrounding schedule to protect it. If you caught that shift, the moment this stopped looking like an overloaded schedule and started looking like a deliberate plan, I want to know what you think it means for how she handles pressure. Because a lot of players her age would panic after an early loss right before a slam. She didn't. Drop a comment on what you think that says about her mindset heading into New York. I read every single one of these, and I'm genuinely curious how many of you caught this pattern before I laid it out. Because here's what should make you pause. None of this happened by accident, and none of it happened in isolation. The format choices, the timing of her rest, the way her team has structured this exact stretch of the calendar, all of it points in the same direction. And there's still one more piece of proof ahead, the one detail that shows this isn't just a lucky coincidence, but something she has actually said out loud, in her own words, about exactly why this approach matters to her. That's where this goes next. Her early exit in Cincinnati looked like a setback at the time. In hindsight, it gave her exactly the kind of rest window a packed schedule like this actually needs. That's proof number 1, and on its own, it could still be a coincidence. A lucky break disguised as a loss. So here's proof number 2, and this is where coincidence stops being a believable explanation. The format itself. Mixed doubles and the stars of the Open exhibition are both built around shortened, fast-paced matches. Not by accident. By design, specifically so top singles players can take part without absorbing the physical cost of a full 3-set battle. That format wasn't created around her. But her team clearly built her schedule around it, using those lighter matches to keep her sharp without spending the physical reserves she needs for the real tournament. Now here's proof number 3. And this one connects everything back to where we started. Before any of this began, she didn't wait until the last minute to show up. She arrived at Flushing Meadows early, days ahead of her first match, and immediately started a structured run of practice sessions on site. Not a rushed, last-minute scramble to get court time. A planned adjustment period, built in before the chaos of the tournament actually started. Put those 3 pieces together. An early loss that quietly bought her recovery time. A tournament format that lets her stay competitive without paying full physical price. And an early arrival that gave her time to adjust before the pressure hit. None of those are the actions of a player scrambling to survive an overloaded week. Those are the actions of a team that planned this stretch of the calendar with real precision. So remember the question this video opened with. What was she actually doing in secret? The answer isn't hiding from pressure. It isn't panicking behind closed doors. It's quiet, deliberate load management, happening in plain sight the whole time, just never framed that way in any headline. And here's the reward for sticking with this all the way through. Earlier this year, she said something that barely made news outside tennis circles, but explains this entire pattern better than any schedule breakdown could. She said that one of the biggest lessons she learned is that knowing when to rest matters just as much as knowing when to compete. Think about how rare that is for a 21-year-old to say out loud. Most young athletes talk about grinding, about never stopping, about pushing through everything. She's doing the opposite. She's treating rest as a skill, not a weakness, and building her entire schedule around that belief. So the question this video started with finally has an answer. But what that answer means for the rest of her season is still wide open. So here's what she was actually doing in secret. Not hiding from pressure. Managing it, on purpose, one lighter match at a time. Every piece we walked through points to the same conclusion. The early loss in Cincinnati that quietly bought her recovery time. The shortened formats in mixed doubles and the exhibition that let her stay sharp without paying full physical price. The early arrival in New York that gave her space to adjust before the real pressure hit. None of that is luck. That's a plan, built by someone who understands exactly what her body can handle and exactly when it needs to rest. Here's what that means going forward. If this approach works, if she comes through these 3 events and steps into her singles run with legs that still have something left in them, this stops being a one-time strategy. It becomes a blueprint. A way of handling the most demanding stretches of a long season without breaking down the way so many young players do when the schedule gets this crowded. But here's the part nobody can predict, not even her own team. A plan on paper is only as good as what actually happens on the court. Load management can protect a body right up until the moment a match goes to 3 sets, until a doubles game runs long, until the adrenaline of playing in front of that crowd pushes her to give more than the plan accounted for. All the preparation in the world doesn't remove the uncertainty of live competition. So the real question isn't whether the strategy makes sense. We just spent the last several minutes proving that it does. The real question is whether it survives contact with the tournament itself. Whether the rest she banked, the energy she saved, the timing she and her team built so carefully, actually holds up once the stakes get real and the matches start counting. That's the part still unwritten. And it's exactly what I'll be watching for as this tournament unfolds, match by match, to see if the quiet plan she built behind closed doors is enough to carry her through the loudest 2 weeks of her career. If you want to see whether it actually holds, whether all this careful preparation pays off or gets tested harder than anyone expected, make sure you're subscribed, because I'm going to be tracking exactly how this plays out, and you're going to want to see how it ends.